The queen is unquestionably the most powerful piece in chess, but knowing when and where to use the queen can be a challenge. On the one hand, she has great attacking potential. On the other hand, the queen can get trapped, so be careful. The black queen can't escape. The queen is best used when supported by at least a few other pieces. Don't bring the queen out too early, however, or you might lose a bunch of time as she gets chased around. Queens can work very well when paired with bishops, like in this position. The light-squared bishop delivers checkmate as it's supported by the queen, and also notice the dark-squared bishop prevents the king from escaping. The queen and knight also work well together, like in this position. She can also be deadly when used with rooks, either in front or behind the rook. And because she can attack so many squares at once, her best use is when directly going after your opponent's king. Checkmate. Watch as a white queen invades the black king side. Game over. Now let's see if you can make the most of your queen. The king is the most important piece in chess, and knowing how to use the king effectively is the difference between winning and losing chess games. From the very beginning to the last move of the game, you need to know when to keep your king safe and when it's time to bring it out of hiding and use it to attack. Let's take a look at some examples of how to use your king. One important part of any chess opening is castling, so that your king can find a safe place to hide. The king hides while the rest of the pieces battle it out in the middle game, trying to control the center, win material, and attack the enemy king. However, if the game gets to the endgame where most of the pieces have been traded away, your king becomes one of the most active, useful pieces on the board. White's king attacks both the knight and pawn. The king is actually quite powerful because he can move in any direction, one space. The king attacks both rooks at once, winning one of them on the next turn. So while the king is not fast, he's strong, as long as the king is not vulnerable. Once most of the major pieces have left the board, the king becomes a very strong piece in the endgame. Now that it's safe to move out of the castled position, both sides should activate their kings, moving them toward the center and trying to help escort the pawns up the board. Watch as one side activates their king and the other just pushes pawns, forgetting that in the endgame, the king is an active piece. White plays f3, opening up a path for the white king to move toward the center. Black should do the same thing by playing f6 or play king to f8. Instead, black just pushes pawns, and white's king travels up the board and brings home the win. After h5, king f2, g5, king e3, f5, and king d4, black keeps pushing pawns, forgetting that the pawn on b5 is all alone and could have used help from the black king. Now it's too late. After f4, white plays king to c5. And after g4, white captures the pawn with king takes b5. After g takes f3 and g takes f3, black finally realizes that the pawns cannot advance without the help of the king, but it's too little, too late. After king f7 and king c6, black realizes that white is going to promote the b pawn, so tries to block the promotion square by playing king e7, dreaming of getting to the b8 square, but white ends all hopes after king c7, preventing the king from getting closer to the pawn, so black tries to chase after the pawn from behind with king e6. But after b5 and king d5, the king cannot catch white's pawn after b6, and white will promote to a queen and should win the game quickly. After looking at these examples, let's see if you've learned how to use your king. Pawns have been called the soul of chess. This is because the structure and plans in each chess game are determined by the positioning of the pawns. Understanding how to use pawns is one of the most challenging aspects of chess. Pawns may only be worth 1 point each in the scale of chess values, but together they add up to 8. Pawns should be used for 4 main things. First, they're used to control squares. In this position, look how many white pawns control so many key squares in the center. Black has a lot of pieces, but they have nowhere to move. Secondly, pawns are used to protect other pieces. Look here where white would love to capture some of those powerful black pieces, but they are all protected by pawns. Third, pawns are useful as battering rams to open up the position. Watch this little pawn on h6 open up the position by playing h takes g7. White captures the pawn directly in front of black's king and opens up the h-file, allowing white's queen and rook to work together to deliver a checkmate on h7. Notice black has no way to stop this. After king takes g7, queen takes h7 is checkmate. Finally, pawns are most useful when they reach the other side of the board and become a queen. Watch this little guy go. Black tries to catch the pawn with king to c6, but black's king is too far away, and white promotes to a queen. Now let's see if you can make the most of your pawns. Pawns have been called the soul